Welcome, everybody, to another edition of UFO Man Live. Tonight, I have a guest, and his name is Tommy Highway. Tommy, introduce yourself.
Hello, folks. I'm Tommy Highway. I'm a network engineer, I'm an author, and I'm a ufologist. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Really appreciate that. And Tim, thank you for having me as always.
Yeah, not a problem, man. And my name is Tim, and I'm also known as UFO Man to those of you who do not know who I am. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or the UAPTF, which the Pentagon recently created to supposedly, or should I say allegedly, give us some transparency with UFO reports and UFO encounters with fighter jet pilots and military encounters and just standard public accounts. Welcome, Eclectic 11, Inger Castleman, Ryan McGee, Rene Cruz. Got to give you a shout out. Thank you for being a subscribed member to the channel. Really appreciate it. Hi, Smoking Joe. If you want to, you can come up on the panel. I gave you a link. Anyways, we're going to be talking about the UAPTF. Now, what I want to do is discuss this with Tommy for a second, because the UAPTF, in my opinion, is a public front organization that was set up by the Pentagon, much like Project Blue Book. So they're going to field reports from different agencies like the FBI and the Department of Defense and the Office of Naval Intelligence, and then they're going to sift through those and see what they're going to release to the public. And as we all know about Project Blue Book did not release the significant findings. They released just the tip of the iceberg. Thinker says, you guys realize that this is all part of the Illuminati Project Blue Beam prelogue to the fallen angels coming down here and pretending to be your long lost space brothers. Well, that's one opinion, and we appreciate your comment. Yes, there is that theory. In regards to no, Morsigo, I am not hiding information. Okay, in regards to the UAPTF, I am going to make clear what the 8 objectives are of the UAPTF that was established on 8/12/2020. Let's see if we can get that video up here and we can play that. Okay. Now, when you listen to this video, you may need to turn up your volume, because when I recorded it, it was quite late and I was trying to keep my voice down. So you need to turn up your volumes to listen to this. Okay, here we go. There's no sound yet. Just hold on. Here is the Unidentified Area Phenomena Task Force and its 8 objectives. In the budget for America's future for fiscal year 2021, President Donald J. Trump's Office of Management and Budget outlines wasteful and unnecessary spending. On page 14 of the document, it makes reference to funding going towards preparing mainstream religions for discovering extraterrestrial life. Senators want the public to see the government's UFO reports. But classified UFO briefings may have left senators disturbed. The committee further directs the report to include: number one, a detailed analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena data and intelligence reporting collected or held by the Office of Naval Intelligence. Number two, a detailed analysis of data from the FBI, which was derived from investigations of intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomena data over restricted U.S. airspace. Number three, a detailed analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena data collected. Number four, a detailed description of interagency process for ensuring timely data collection analysis of all unidentified aerial phenomena reported for the federal government, regardless of which service or agency acquired the information. Number five, identification of official accountability for the process described in paragraph 4. Number six, identification of potential aerospace or other threats posed by the UAP to national security, and an assessment of whether this UAP activity may be attributed to one or more foreign adversaries, most likely China or Russia. Number seven, identification of any incidents or patterns that indicate a potential adversary may have achieved breakthrough aerospace capabilities that could put the U.S. strategic or conventional forces at risk. And number eight, recommendations regarding increased collection of data, enhanced research and development, and additional funding and other resources through federal and public collaborations. These are the 8 objectives of the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, or the UAPTF. So those are the eight. Those are the 8 objectives of the UAPTF. But as you can see, they are standardized objectives that are used for many organizations for oversight and for control. What do you think, Tommy?
I think it smells an awful lot like a 21st century blue book. I really do. I don't believe that even if the government, well, they clearly had the information that we all seek, of course, but they're never going to release that to us. I just don't see that happening. I mean, look at the Tic Tac video, for instance. I mean, they've admitted that they've got crystal clear 4K video of this thing, whatever the hell it's doing. They have that, but what did we get? We got the grainiest, 56K version of the video that we could possibly have gotten. Why would that be? If they're trying to disclose, if they want to enlighten the public on this particular phenomenon, then why not give us the real deal? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it seems like they're dragging their feet and kind of not giving us the golden apple, which is what we're all searching for. I mean, come on. I want to see the actual wreckage. I want to see not bits and pieces of metal. I want to see wreckage. I want to see a craft. I want to see it hover like Bob Lazar claimed he saw it hover. I want to know that it's not ours.
I'm forced to wonder if it's the reason that they're not disclosing it is not necessarily that they're trying to deceive the American public. It's more along the lines of they're trying to cover up the fact that they have some incredibly advanced technology, which would scare the militaries of our adversaries like China and Russia into possibly even some sort of a confrontation if we were to come forward with that. I mean, imagine if the United States walked up and just said, oh, by the way, we've got technology that's, let's say, 500,000 years ahead of anything we have here. I mean, of course, that's going to cause major military tensions between the superpowers in this country.
Right, a shift of power in the world.
Big
Yes,
time, big
exactly.
balance of power.
Yeah. Welcome, Texas Radio Comedy. Good to see you. What I'm going to say is this. Yes, I've always thought that there would be a shift in power if we would come out with what the CEO Ben Rich said we had. I mean, he claimed, and I'm going to reiterate this. He did claim that we had technology to take ET home, and he never specified where ET lived. So what I'm saying is, if that's the case, that would almost insinuate that we have interstellar capability, and if we have interstellar capability, that far exceeds what the Russians have.
Oh yeah.
And that far exceeds what China is even thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, the UAPTF is saying that they're more concerned about whether these Tic Tac UFOs that were sighted in 2004 and 2009 were actually vehicles of some type of technological breakthrough from an adversarial country. And it could be most likely China or Russia. That's what they're concerned about. Marco Rubio stated recently that he doesn't believe it's China or Russia, that these things are far too quick. They're far too fast. They cannot be caught. They're just not indicative of man-made vehicles. If you judge it by current physics and current technology, I mean, it even exceeds quantum physics.
It's exotic technology. And not only that, but it's exotic propulsion. I mean, you name it. Everything about this is completely foreign to our planet.
Yeah. Sorry, Tommy. They have no idea how these things are even staying aloft. I mean, there's no wings, no tail, no rudder, nothing. Right, Tommy?
That's right. That's right. I mean, I've actually often pondered whether or not we were actually ready for disclosure as a species. I mean, I've thought about this. I mean, even since I was a small child and saw something odd in the sky for the first time. I'm forced to wonder, though. I mean, I know that I can handle this because I already know as a person what's going on here. I'm absolutely positive that we are being visited on a regular basis, probably by more than one species. I'm personally convinced of this. I can handle that disclosure. But when you look at our world today and our country today and the things that are going on in some of these major cities and whatever, I mean, I wonder what a full disclosure would do to something like that. I wonder what it would do to a situation like that. I mean, not to bring politics into it, but think about it. I mean, it seems like the American people are kind of quick to go off on something. What would disclosure do to us?
Yeah, I almost think that we would have anarchy and chaos, because look what happened with the murdering of George Floyd up in Minneapolis. And it set off a worldwide rioting, looting, pillaging, and anarchy and chaos. I mean, it may have started out as peaceful protest, but it extended far past that.
Sure.
And that was just due to one event.
Not the greatest question of all being answered and stuck right in our faces, whether or not we're alone in the universe.
Right. Now, if I kind of think that everyone out there in the chat room and in the UFO community, and maybe even some people that are not part of the UFO community, already know that there are people out there or beings out there.
Other civilizations.
It's just unreasonable to believe that there isn't. I mean, the universe is so incredibly large. I mean, what we see may only be a percentage of what is actually out there. And if that's the case, if you can imagine multiplying that by infinity, wow.
The chances of us being alone and the only intelligent life in the entire vastness of the universe is mathematically impossible. I mean, you can bet if life developed here, you can bet that it developed other places too. And who knows? I mean, if somebody's a million years ahead of us, like the Greys or whatever, they could be up to a million years ahead of us. Think about that. Think about how advanced a civilization could get in things that they could achieve in a million years. I mean, if you look at our civilization right now, I mean, we just had the internal combustion engine, what, for 100 years or so? I mean, things like that. We're just a few 150 years or so away from the steam Jenny. I mean, come on.
Right.
But we've got a long way to go.
According to what I understand, the blackout community has been insinuating that we have transluminal propulsion. That would be faster than light speed. If they broke that, that would be the technology that would throw this planet into a shift of power, because we could travel in a matter of, well, according to what I understand, it would take like 36 days to go from the Earth to Mars.
Right. They're also saying that a lot of the asteroids in the asteroid belt are so rich in minerals that we could, if we were to able to mine something like that, it could even destroy the global economy, or at least bring it down. Because what happens when gold is all of a sudden super common, something that we could just reach right out there, grab an asteroid full of gold or something, all of a sudden gold is worthless.
Right. Exactly.
That's one of the things, one of the theories I've heard brought up as a concern, really.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is this. The other thing is there is a theory out there that gold is also used in repairing atmosphere. So when you have an atmospheric issue, they can pulverize the gold into dust, and it will suspend in the atmosphere, and it can help reflect sunlight. So it can help repair a damaged atmosphere. So it's very, very helpful. In fact, there is a story going around that the Anunnaki that originally arrived back in Mesoamerica back in like what, I don't know, 2,000 years ago, maybe even farther, they actually were here because they wanted to mine gold. And they were looking for a source of gold. And the earth is rich with gold, but it's mostly in the ground. It's not in the rivers. And originally, I guess they were trying to mine it from the ocean. I guess it's in ocean water. But it was so difficult that they had to mine it from the ground. And they were getting the gold for one purpose. And according to ancient cuneiform texts, it justifies the fact that they were getting, the beings that came from heaven were using the gold to repair their atmosphere on their planet. And they were using Mars as a base on the way between Earth and their planet. So when people say, oh yeah, there's bases on Mars, maybe there was, I don't know, can't verify it. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of ruins and the pictures of anomalies on the surface of Mars, but who can say whether they're rocks or something else?
I still want to know what we nuked on the moon, because as far as I can tell, if you're looking for water, using a nuclear weapon to do that's a bad idea.
Well, yeah, it would vaporize everything. It would be gone.
So anybody that bought into that particular theory, I mean, I guess you don't understand what nuclear weapons are, because no, I'm not. That was the cover. Oh, search for water. There's something else going on there.
Yeah, there's something going on everywhere. And what's funny is when you start to look beyond the box that we all live in. I mean, going to work, coming home, taking care of our families, doing our daily routines. If you step outside of yourself and actually take a look at what's really going on, you would be completely baffled by all the things that are going on. Yeah, it's amazing, all the manipulation and lies and cover up and stuff that's going on. That's why I really believe that the UAPTF, although it's a step in the right direction, is not necessarily created to give us the transparency that we're all looking for.
When has the United States government ever leveled with its people? When? On what subject?
Yeah. I mean, right now they're withholding stimulus. I mean, come on. How are they going to they're just going to sit back and withhold all this information in regards to these significant cases because they feel that we're children, that we cannot handle it. And that's an issue because our elected officials, I feel, don't have that right. I think that information should be made public and we should have that information. What do you think in the chat? Okay. Okay, it looks like, hey, KJ, did you get the link? Hey, Occam, welcome. Thinker, good to see you. Nanine, what is your take on unidentified inside America's UFO investigations? I don't know. I kind of think that the UFO investigations within certain organizations have been taken over by those who don't want us to know.
Yeah.
For instance, MUFON. MUFON used to be a very respected organization, but lately you can't really trust everything they're doing because they've been funded by the federal government now.
And you know those organizations have been infiltrated up one side and down the other with undercover feds and all that stuff to figure out what these people are all about and what they're up to. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the government wasn't manipulating those groups to boot. So,
right, exactly. Hey, Bobby Broadway, good to see you. I see you in my comment section often, and it's very good to see you here in the chat. Welcome. It says, Thinker says, everybody knows what's going on in South Pole. Admiral Byrd stated it plainly in that Brazilian newspaper when after he lost all those men in a couple of ships.
Operation
High Jump. That Operation High Jump actually had a connection to the German UFO project. Because according to what I understand, there was a base just on the inside of the hole that's in the South Pole. And that base was actually a German base. And they had Hanabus and Vril saucers in there. And when Admiral Byrd came to the pole, he was attacked by the advanced German saucers. Now, this is just a theory, of course, but the craft that were described looked like a Vril rather than, or a Hanabu rather than like something that you would see from off-world, something etheric, something surreal. What did you think, Tommy?
I think something happened in the South Pole. I think Operation High Jump was a lot more than met the eye. I think that when they interviewed Admiral Byrd afterwards, he was visibly shaken by all accounts. And some of the things he said, I mean, you don't have an admiral, a military man, a career man coming out and making the statements that he's making. I mean, the first thing he said, he told the truth. He told the truth that they've been attacked by something that was very advanced. And then after, it got back to the military, whatever, they shut him up, threatened his career and all that, I'm sure. Then all of a sudden he changed his story. But usually when you look at the government and how they screw up, their first story is usually the truth and the cover up is the lie. I mean, just like Roswell. I mean, it's a prime example right there.
Iron Man said, why did the U.S. lock him up in a nut house after he went to the South Pole? Well, first off, he was shaken up.
Yeah.
Secondly, they wanted to cover up the story, and the best way to keep him from talking is to lock him up.
Right.
So back then, that's what they did, and in some cases now they do it as well. Thinker was saying, what about the 1952 flyover of Washington by the Nazi UFOs, basically saying, surrender, give us your resources? It was on the cover of Time magazine. Well, I'll tell you, I have researched that, and they were obviously, according to the research I've done, they were obviously German saucers. It was a show of force by the Germans out of that base that they had up there in Antarctica. I can't remember the name of the base, but in New Schwabenland, I think it was. They came down and they flew over the White House to show that they had technology that far exceeded what anyone else did.
Could I interrupt for just a moment? I want to address something that Inger said here. A Roswell Part 2 sort of deal will happen, and that will bring it out. No stopping the progression to truth. Well, that's true. And here's the thing. The only way I could see the government actually coming forward and giving us disclosure is if a craft were to crash into a major city somewhere or someplace where it cannot be covered up. When you've got, let's say 100,000 people witnessing it and photographing it and all that. If that happens, then yeah, I agree. At that point, I think the government will come clean, but that's going to have to take that, I believe.
Although I have to say this, when the Pentagon came out and said that we have wreckage from crashed saucers, correct? Well, if they're going to say that, okay, and they're saying that they're off-world created, if they're not man-made in space, okay, like an advancement of the Vril or Haunebu, for instance. I mean, the Vril and Haunebu were operational in 1921. So if you figure that they're operational now, and holy mackerel, how much more advanced would they be now than they were then? So I'm saying it could very well be a man-made craft that crashed near Roswell, although they say there were alien bodies on board. Now, I've heard theories that the alien bodies were actually a gray biomechanical creature that was created in labs here on Earth. Now, I don't know if that's the case or not, but Dulce was supposedly one of those places. Iron Man said, we have multiple sightings over Lake Ontario for years up here. I think they have a base in the lake. That's very probable. What is the most stable environment in the world? It would be water. So, and plus, we can't go down below a certain depth. So if they can travel through water like it's air, and they can go down deep, they can have an underground base underneath the ocean or underneath that lake. Yeah, I've seen those lights.
Perfect place to hide one. Perfect place to hide one.
Yeah, I've seen those lights that you're talking about over Lake Ontario. Yes. Let's see. Like you say, why would they help us when they never have? Yes, that's the case. Why would the United States government all of a sudden cough up? I have a video that I want to play, and what it is entitled Transparent Beach Ball UFO UAP with Interior Cube Almost Struck by a Fighter Jet. And it is just a short commentary from David Fravor. He's sitting with Jeremy Corbell and George Noory. And what's interesting is that he's talking about just that. So let me see if I can bring it up. And we'll go ahead and play that one. Here it is. Come on. It's not playing. Hold on a second.
They almost hit one there's a couple things I see. This is all off Virginia, by the way. It's the vacapes. So there's whiskey areas out there too. That's where NAS Oceana goes out and trains. They've tracked them at just sitting there. They've tracked them at high rates of speed. They've been tracked lots. The radars they're using now are even better than the ones that I had in the Super Hornet. It's pretty amazing. More advanced technology, you know, cooler stuff, more capable. They're seeing it. At first they thought when they first saw it, they thought, oh, these are just ghost hits. And I'm like, no, that radar really doesn't provide ghost hits, which are false targets. It's pretty good. And then someone actually threw their targeting pod out there, and there was something there, because you can't hide from the targeting pod if you've got any type of heat signature. And that's what really started this. But they've been seen by many people as far as on the radar. And there's been a couple that have seen visual, because one guy almost hit one. It was just sitting there.
This is recent. This is real recent.
This is within the last 5 years.
Did they describe these things as conventional aircraft? How did they describe these things they almost hit, Dave?
They describe it as, well, the one that almost got hit was like a clear beach ball sphere with a cube inside. So the little apex of each corner hit the cube. So I don't know if it's like a, you know, is it a beach ball or is it like a force field? I don't know. There's something around it. They never, this is kind of what's prompting. I think they're getting heat from other avenues of the government because of what happened with our incident that, you know, hindsight being 2020, which is how I live my life. Probably should have done something about it. You know, maybe put a little effort into this. If not to go figure out what can come in and penetrate a battle group like that, but God, just what if we can harness that technology?
Yeah, what if we could harness that technology? That would be fantastic, but maybe that's the reason why they're not releasing that information.
We already have.
Yeah, but they haven't released it all. Because
the reason being is because we already have mastered some of that technology, and that's why they want to keep it so
Sure. I saw a story in the Examiner that said that that reverse engineering of alien craft has been unsuccessful. That's just another way of bamboozling the public. They're trying to captivate us with a couple grainy films from the USS Nimitz and then confuse us along the way.
Look at this, don't look at this.
Right. Not watch what the other hand is doing.
Yep.
Inger says the truth will be absolutely unimaginable to our tiny brains. Well, I got to say this. We have yet a long way to go to grow. Yes. But we are approaching the point where we need to know. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're out here on live streams. We're questioning the truth. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We're trying to find that information and present it. It's very hard because most of the information is delved out through the mainstream media. And tell me, how many of you in the chat really trust the mainstream media? Can honestly tell you, I don't trust the majority of them. The only person that I actually maybe a tiny bit consider credible is Tucker Carlson from Fox News. And maybe a couple other reporters on that channel. But I can honestly say that the credibility behind the disclosure may have had a positive intent at one point, but someone locked it down to like where we're not getting the full measure of the information.
The Potomac two-step.
Yes. What were you going to say before that, Tom?
I just wanted to address something that Thomas Fessler was talking about there. UFO patents, what did they do to get rich? Well, I mean, if you believe the story of, I think it was Eisenhower, wasn't he the one that made the deal with supposedly the Greys, that they could come here and they could examine a small amount of people or whatever, and for that we would get some kind of technology or whatever. You know, it was like the tarmac meeting, you know, the at that airport. Supposedly the story goes that the Greys went nuts with it. They went way over the line, and basically broke the treaty with us, and that's how we left
Oh
it.
yeah.
I mean, if you believe that story is out there, and it's been out there for decades.
That's the Greada Treaty, and that happened in 1954 at Muroc Air Force Base. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say about that is the treaty was originally. See, we were thinking as human beings that we were able to make a human treaty with an alien species. I mean, come on. Why are they going to subjugate themselves to our rules and laws? I mean, they're interstellar. They're probably so advanced they wouldn't even have a concept of what our laws and rules are.
I like the way Bob Lazar put it. He said, when you walk past an anthill, do you stop and try to communicate with it?
Right. Right, exactly. If they considered us to have the sentience of a blade of grass,
right,
and they were a giant human, would they talk to us or step on us? That's the point. Now, somebody brought up in the last live stream that we did that perhaps alien beings, we look at the idea of alien life forms as being almost human-sized, or maybe a little shorter, or maybe a little taller, but we don't think of them in complete different sizes. Like, for instance, microscopic. If they were microscopic, say the size of a virus, could they be invading Earth as a virus? That was a really good question that we had in the last live stream, and I wanted to point that out. If that's the case, then, a lot of things could be happening that we're unaware of. Now, what about us? The human race has been referred to as a virus because we move in, we eat what is there in our surrounding communities, right? And then we spread out. That's exactly what a virus does. And it destroys everything around it until it needs to move on again. So what I'm wondering is, could another species be the same thing, but just smaller? And we don't see it. Now, I do know that there is some footage out there from they call it the Russian Roswell. That's that disc that was flipped on edge that was in the Siberian woods. They actually had recovered bodies from that disc, and they were only like about 1.5 feet long. So they weren't very big. Because if you saw that disc in any of the live footage from the Russian Roswell, and that footage has been circulating around for quite some time, if you've seen any of that footage, you would know that disc is so small that it could only handle beings that are really small. Well, anyways, there is some footage out there also showing the autopsy being performed on 2 of them from the Russian Roswell disc, and it's they look humanoid. They have a head, torso, arms, legs, but they don't look human, definitely. And they are so much smaller. So that would justify what I'm trying to get at, is that alien beings may not be what our concept is, just like alien craft, ships, vehicles may not be what we're accustomed to seeing in the sky. So when somebody says, that can't be a UFO because it's on the ground and it hasn't flown off. Well, how do you know it's not a UFO? I mean, it may just be a large disc on the ground and it isn't going to leave for a while.
Did you ever see the footage? I believe it's somewhere in Asia of a craft landing and like a thing coming down from the bottom of it, and this long creature got out of it and scared these kids, and they took off running after they saw it. But did you ever see that footage?
I saw that, but I guess that's been debunked as fake. Yeah, I don't know if it's fake or not, but it's almost too hard to believe that one. But I did see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were in a car and it was flying alongside their car, and then it landed in some trees. Yeah, I saw it. If something like that happened, for real, I think the people would have been running away in fear. Yep, for the most part. Some of us would stay there and go, "Oh, take me with you," but no. I would be excited, but I'd be hiding behind the bush.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be very apprehensive to walk up to something that's completely alien to this planet. I mean, you don't know what the hell that thing's capable of doing.
Yeah, you don't know if it's going to take you away. I mean, look at what happened to Travis Walton in the Fire in the Sky encounter. I mean, the movie didn't do the actual abduction justice, according to Travis, but they had to make it entertaining so that people would watch the movie. But I can honestly tell you that what Travis Walton did was brave, but very foolish. I don't know if I would do that. Anybody in the chat willing to do that? Yeah, Bobby Broadway says a remake is a must. Well, that would be kind of cool if they could do a remake with the actual facts. The incident in Australia when the kids and staff of the school saw a landed one in the field across from the school. Yeah, Nanine, I know about that one too.
Very famous story.
I think that's Westfall, Australia, if I'm correct, with the kids. Maybe not, but I do know that that was a very integral part of the UFO community. I mean, how can you discredit a bunch of children seeing the same exact thing and drawing the same exact pictures?
Drawing the same photo of a picture of the same thing that they saw. I mean, everybody was right on point with that.
Yeah. And then 30 years later, coming back, some of those children as adults and saying, yes, our stories are the same. So yeah, that's a credible sighting. Rodney, good to see you. Thank you for being a staff member on one of my groups. I really appreciate that. And by the way, congrats on how well your group is doing. I want to tell you that. And your channel. Rodney Thomas has a UFO channel. He also has a UFO group called UFOs Are Us. Check it out. That's on Facebook. Had to give him a shout out. He doesn't come much, so I wanted to talk to him. But all right. Any suggestions there, Tommy? What do you suggest? Where should we proceed now?
Well, I don't know. Anybody want to hear a story?
Yeah, let's hear a story.
That work? All right. Well, the year was 1990. It was it's actually the night that Mike Tyson was beaten for the first time. And I know that because I was living in northern Iowa with a girlfriend at the time, and we were going to watch that fight that night. And I'd gone out that day and bought food and stuff. We're going to fire up the hibachi, have a good time, right? As it happens, my girlfriend worked at a Target store on the edge of this town. And this is back when Target stores were like just any big little dinky things, right? They didn't have the food and all that stuff, but she worked there part-time in the evenings. And a couple miles behind this Target was this abandoned road that led down to a big cornfield. I'm talking about, this is the kind of place that at least back in that time, past this Target store, there was nothing but silos and cornfields as far as the eye could see, right? But anyway, there was this service road for one of the cornfields. And I used to take my car out there and run it up and down this road because there's no cops, nobody around. You could kind of, do whatever you wanted to do. I did this often, did this like almost every night. So that evening, I got bored waiting for her to get off work. She got off work about 10 o'clock. So I went out to that road and I was doing my thing, had the stereo jamming and all that. And as I'm cruising down this road, about the third trip down this road, which is, this road's maybe 2 miles long, the car started acting funny. I mean, it's like shimmying kind of thing, you know. And I'm looking at my gauges and everything. It looks fine. So I back off the accelerator. And the further I got down this road, this car really started shimmying and like sort of sputtering. Like, I guess it like missing it basically is what it was doing. And so I stopped the car. And for whatever reason, I thought to myself, this must be an earthquake, because of the way the car was rocking. And I wanted to feel that on my feet. So I stopped the car. I jumped out. And as soon as my feet hit the floor or the ground, rather, my car died. And I mean, I don't mean just the engine shut off. I mean, the lights, the stereo, everything completely gone. And I'm standing there looking at my car with the door open, thinking, what could I possibly have just done to this? It's like a new car. What could I possibly have done to this new car? And it was a real clear night, a winter night. You know, there wasn't any wind to speak of or anything like that. And I remember looking up. It would have been to, I guess, my 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock position from where I was standing. And I saw this large, it looked like an orb. It was this big, dull red ball. And to be honest with you, I probably wasn't wearing my contact lenses because I was bad about that back then. But it was this large red orb, and it was traveling from north to south, very deliberately, very slowly, but very deliberately. And as this thing got to, I'd say maybe my 1 o'clock position or so, and this is, I would estimate it's probably 500 or 600 yards ahead of me. It's way out there. It's not like on top of me. But it got to about my 1 o'clock position, and all of a sudden this thing it drops to the ground, or starts to drop toward the ground, and then stops. I mean, let's say a few hundred feet in the air, and it starts emitting this molten metal or something, material out of the bottom or the back of it or whatever. This stuff was so bright that I couldn't look directly at it. I mean, I had to shield my eyes, and I'm kind of looking at the car windshield, you know, to watch this. Yeah. And so it did that. It emitted that stuff 2 or 3 times, and then it started gaining altitude again, kind of at an angle, and it crossed the road, or at least my plane of where I was on the road. It crossed, and all of a sudden, boom, it dropped again. And this time, maybe it was just the angle. This time I was convinced it was going to hit the ground. In fact, I remember even flinching like that, thinking it's going to hit for sure. But it stopped. It emitted some more of that stuff, and then it started gaining altitude again. So while I'm watching this thing, just in complete awe, because there's just, when you experience something like this, it removes all doubt. It's the best way I can tell you. I mean, I knew that I was looking at something that was exotic technology. I knew that. I knew it wasn't an aircraft. It wasn't a weather balloon. It wasn't Santa Claus. Okay. It was something unique. So while I'm watching this, something else catches my eye to the north, and I look over and I see this smaller version of this orb, and it's speeding right toward this one, like making a beeline toward it. Yeah. Well, I'm watching this thing go like this. Another one of those orbs, small orbs, comes from behind me, like over my shoulder, scared the crap out of me. Not that I already wasn't terrified. I promise I was. I was an 18, 19-year-old kid. But anyway, so it came over my shoulder, and it scared me. So what happened was the one that came from the north disappeared behind this red orb, and then the one that came from my shoulder, or behind me rather, stopped. So imagine a volleyball being straddled by 2 tennis balls. Okay, it's sort of that scale, sort of. And they stood there and they didn't do anything for, it must have been, I mean, it didn't seem like it took forever, but it wasn't a quick thing. I mean, I thought I was standing there for about 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, the big one in the center, it began to sort of twinkle inside with lights. And it did this 3 or 4 times, like millions of like little lights. And then all of a sudden, whoop, it became the same color as the other 2. And when it did that, they all 3 shot straight up in the air, and they got so much altitude like that they look like one object up there now. But I knew they weren't, obviously. And then as I'm watching it, then all of a sudden, boom, they take off to the south, and they're gone just like that. Now, no sooner did this happen that my car came back on. I don't mean the engine started, but the lights and the stereo came on. The stereo is blaring static. So I jump in the car, and the static is just driving me crazy. So the stereo had like those rocker buttons, you know, you push one side of it, it goes up, the other side goes down. So I just hit the power button. When I hit the power button, I looked at the clock, and the clock was flashing 12:01. So the car had been reset, right? So I'm just completely blown away by this. And I was almost tempted to try to drive back into that field, because it's a frozen cornfield, to see if that stuff had left any burn marks or whatever. But at this point, I'm completely freaked out. And I know I'm going to be late to pick up my girlfriend. So I jump in the car. I remember touching the key and turning it, and just wondering if it's even going to start, but it did. It fired up. So I came around and back up the road and back toward that Target store. And then I remember turning the stereo back on, and I started hitting the preset buttons, electronic preset buttons, and they were all reset back to factory. Okay. Now I'd had I drove this car for like something like 12 years, 354,000 miles. I've had the battery out of that car more than once, and it never reset anything. So anyway, I finally get to this Target store, and I turn into the loading dock, which I always did from the back, went around to the front of the place, and it was completely closed up tight. Every light that they turned on or off, I should say, was turned off. So my girlfriend's not standing there. Oh God, what am I going to do? And this is before cell phones and stuff. But we live nearby. So I jump in the car, cruise down the road, pull into our place, and I can tell she's home because every light in the house is on. And I walk into the house, and she's standing there in our dining room set or whatever, tapping her foot, screaming at me about being irresponsible. She had to get her boss to pick her up or whatever. And I'm going, but listen, but, and I mean, my eyes had to have been that big around. I mean, I was affected by what just happened to me. So finally, I finally just yelled at her. I said, will you shut up? I can't possibly be that late anyway. And she grabbed me by the wrist and led me into the kitchen like she always did. We had one of those plastic round, clocks that everybody has in their kitchen. Right. Deals in different colored ones. And I looked up there, and sure enough, I mean, I was like 90 minutes late. So what I had been standing there watching, thinking that this took 15 or 20 minutes, took over an hour, because that where I was compared to where we lived was maybe a 10-minute drive at most. So anyway, so I'm missing time. Well, I don't know if it was that so much as it was just this took a really long time, and it was so awesome that I lost personal track of time. I think that's more of what probably happened. But anyway, so I'm trying to convince this girl that this happened. And I told her the story exactly the way I've shared it with you. And she's not buying it. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm late to pick you up from work. Of all of the excuses that I could have come up with, I landed on UFO? Really? So obviously that was when I was thinking it was time for her to go. But she was still mad. We went upstairs that night, and the evening's ruined, of course. And the fight's going to come on at like midnight. So we had some time, and I'm flipping through the local news stations, and it was local news in Des Moines, and people all over the state were reporting strange lights in the sky, and someone even reported a fire in the sky. So then I remember looking at my girlfriend and she's like, oh, you weren't lying? Of course I wasn't lying. But yeah, I mean, once you have an experience like that and you're up close and personal with this kind of technology, I mean, again, it just removes all doubt. It really does. Yeah. It changes your worldview, your paradigm. It's a game changer. Yeah. Totally different sport after that. And you start questioning everything, including religion and everything. The way you were brought up to believe. I mean, we're brought up to believe that there are no monsters, that there are no such thing as aliens. There are little green men, from Mars, and blah, blah, blah. Well, we come to find out that they're not little green men. They're gray, or they're other colors, just like humans are different species and different colors, Yeah. So anyways, what I want to say is that I had something happen to me was it last night or was it today? I don't remember if it was today or if it was last night. I think it was last night. I was telling Tommy before the live stream started. See, I live in an area, I'm at the crest of a valley. So we're right at the top of some bluffs. So sound carries. Kind of if you take a cell phone and put it into a cup, how much louder it gets. Well, if you have sound that's passing over the valley, it'll resonate where I live. It's very loud. So when a plane goes over, you can hear it. The jet wash, you can hear it almost automatically right after it passes. Well, what I saw last night was cylindrical in shape. It was a straight silver line. On each end, there were two solid red lights, horizontal to each other, and on each end. And then in the middle was a bright white light. And this thing was moving in a steady direction. I think it was traveling northwest, and at a high rate of speed
And when it went past us, what we noticed is that it was traveling quite low. Probably, I don't know, we guessed about 2,000 feet. And how did we figure that out? We figured about 4 times the top of the trees, that high. So I don't know what that would be. That'd be probably about 2,000 feet. This thing was moving quickly and it had absolutely no sound. I was outside. I was listening. It was still, it was about 9:30, 10 at night. Wow. I think it was my most current UFO sighting. I have no idea what it was. So in the essence of UFO, it is an unidentified flying object. Now, whether it is alien, I'm not going to make that jump. But I'm going to say that it was definitely a UFO. Michael Beaver said, Rodney Thomas, remember when we were on the phone and I see that odd red light? No. Do you see a red light, Michael? Where do you see the red light? 5 days ago you saw it. Wow, that's pretty current. There's a lot of activity currently. Yeah, there's a lot of UFO activity. Not a lot of people are getting it on camera though, which is I don't know why that is. I had an experience where something was 50 feet away and about 500 feet in the air, and there were 12 of us with cell phone cameras, and we couldn't get it on camera either. We could not get the footage of what was there right in front of our eyes. I mean, we saw it, everybody saw it, but we could not get it on film. So maybe that's the reason why people aren't getting as many videos of quality lately. I mean, they're getting some, but if you scour the U.S. news, or you scour, and I'm not talking mainstream media, I'm talking like public reports, you will find that there are less sightings like in the last month than there were back in July. July, we had kind of like a peak. And from what I understand, UFO sightings go in waves. Mm-hmm. And that would be indicative to me that if there were a mothership in orbit, then all the UFOs are going to be, coming around. Whereas for some reason, they're starting to slow down. They're not as active. Now, I know that a lot of people are seeing the TR-3B, but that's no longer hidden. They applied for a patent recently, the TR-3B, and the TR-6 Tellus that I talked about in our last live stream was active as of 1996. Mm-hmm. So you think about that. That's what? How many years is that? That's 24 years ago that we had the TR-6 Tellus. 1,200 feet on each side. I mean, come on. If we had an anti-gravity craft capable of hyperatmospheric travel back in 1996, what do we have now?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's so hard to understand.
Technology tends to multiply by a factor of 4 every 20 years. So, I mean, you're looking at, God knows, who only knows what we've got there now. But again, I think it comes down to a lot of it comes down to the military not wanting to fess up to what kind of technology that we're playing with here because of the balance of power factor.
See, I was inclined to believe that in the Greada Treaty, we received some technology. Now, whether we actually understood what that technology did or not is another thing altogether. But I do know that some of it has been reverse engineered using our physics. But what's really difficult about that is when you use human-grown physics versus off-world physics,
Mhm.
um,
You're playing with two
or
different
whatever,
schools.
or whatever they call it. You know, it might not be physics. It might just be their religion or their way of life. I mean, how do we know? In fact, I heard recently that one of the ships that crashed the one that crashed in St. Augustine, New Mexico, actually had a being that was integrated into the ship, that he was part of the control functions to fly the craft, and that they could not remove him from the ship because he was part of the actual biomechanical ship.
Well, we're playing with that now at our level of technology. Imagine what they could do, you know, a million year head start. I mean, as far in terms of creating life, integrating life, and fusing life forms with technology.
Right. Fred Gray said metamaterials. You're correct. And vortex technology. Yeah, you're right. What I want to say is that we have more than what they're telling you.
Mm-hmm.
If Ben Rich, when he was still alive, said we were 100 to 150 years ahead of what the public knows, and that was back in 96. Imagine if that is leapfrogged by ×4, like Tommy says, then we could be 400 or 500 years ahead of what the public knows.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to Ben Rich, CEO of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, he said also that if Star Wars or Star Trek has tried it, we've been there, tried it, and moved on. So that would tell me, as a reasonable adult, that we have already tried warp drive or something like it, okay, and moved on. Or we have it and we're just not telling anyone because of the shift of power problem.
Yep.
As Tommy referred to earlier. So yes, it is definitely an issue. Rodney says, have you ever heard of the Underwater Fast Mover Project? No, I have not, but I understand what they are. Yeah. Daniel Brad McBolin III says, what's so strange about a living conveyance? Ask Plains Tribe horse culture. Yes, I don't see an issue with a living conveyance. It's just being part of the actual ship, integrated in to where the head is in the ship and you don't see the head of the being. Okay, it's part of the, I don't know, neuron control system or whatever you want to call it. But that's why they think that these ships make spot on maneuvers.
Neuron control system. I love it.
Yeah, there you go. We coined it here on UFO Man. Neuron control system.
You heard it here first.
Anyways, what I'm going to say is that's why they think that these craft are making spot on maneuvers, because it's being done with a brain system. And our brains react faster than most computers. I mean, look at the troubles we have with normal computers. And then I always have to remind people, well, that's because computers are programmed by humans. So there you go. The brain can respond faster than a computer in most cases. Rodney says they have a project where they track these underwater UFOs with submarines. Yeah, I've heard about it, kind of, but I don't know if they've actually released any of that information into the public domain yet, Rodney. I'm hoping that they will eventually. But like I said before, with kind of the trickle down disclosure they're doing with the UAPTF and with the normal reporting systems set in place with the U.S. government and MUFON. I don't know if that's going to be forthcoming real soon. Now, if it is, oh my, what a world changer, right, Tommy?
Absolutely, completely. I mean, it would be so huge that there's no way to predict humanity's reaction to it. I mean, there's just no way to predict. Some people would be fine. I mean, I would be fine. I mean, again, I'm already hip to what's going on here. You guys out there in the chat, you'd all be fine. But you've got these other people out there that maybe couldn't handle it. I mean, you could be talking mass suicides. You could be talking, mass hysteria of every kind. The worst parts of the Bible, basically, coming down on our society just because we've disclosed. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are panicky idiots, man. I mean, it just is what it is.
Right. Sometimes people bring religion into UFO sightings. And I think it's because they can't accept what they're seeing and they have to look at it as a celestial event. In fact, even in the Bible and other historical religious books, there have been what appears to be UFO sightings.
Sure.
Described in the language of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Ezekiel,
yeah. Ezekiel's wheel, a wheel within a wheel. And then a lot of times, like for instance, when I'm not going to say that I'm a super Christian or a practicing Christian, and we're not going to bring that up here on this channel. But what I'm going to say to you is this. There was I think it was a story or maybe even a parable where God put Moses in the cleft of a mountain. And he told him, don't look on me because my light from myself will burn your eyes. Well, to me, that sounds like radioactive light.
Or something really super bright, like a welding torch or whatever.
Right, like something extremely bright and hot. Mm-hmm. And if you remember the movie Independence Day and they showed the craft on fire, that would be what I would imagine. It would burn your eyes. So that could very well have been another UFO sighting right there. And anyone who was using a PA system 2,000 years ago could have made it sound like a voice coming from the heavens.
Absolutely, real easy.
So that could have very well been the case. Let's see here. Jonah and the Whale USO from Rene Cruz. Yeah, what a thought.
That's an interesting take, isn't it?
Yeah, you never know. Fred Gray said a plasma generator could be something that would cause that type of light. Yeah, very possible. Elijah whisked away in a whirlwind is an extraterrestrial alien abduction, Rene Cruz is specifying. Very possibly. Yep. There are a lot of stories that indicate that it could very well be one or the other. It could either be the Christian viewpoint or it could be an intergalactic one or an interstellar one. But what I wanted to get back to was the UAPTF that I originally entitled this live stream about. They are not going to hand you the information that we're all waiting for. I mean, I've been scouring the news ever since the last live stream, and there's nothing. I got one news story, but there's nothing coming out because everybody's concentrating on the box again. The box about elections, the box about normal human issues. They're not looking at the world as a galactic member. They're not.
They can't handle the concept of that. That's why.
Yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
In the movie Men in Black, I think it was the first one, when they end the film, they pull the camera away from the Earth and they're going farther and farther out into space. And it shows you the diminutive nature of our planet and how we are almost inconsequential in the infinitesimal size
Grain
of
of
the
sand.
universe.
Grain of sand on the beach.
Right. Occam said, Source is omnipotent. We are sentient, sapient beings. Yes, you are correct. Moses is Akhenaten, who probably is an Atlantean or alien. Thomas, that is a great thought, but until I get information pertaining to factual evidence, I can't claim that. But that is a cool thought. I do know that there were some beings that supposedly gave Vimana technology to India, which would be, they referred to them as flying temples, because they were so large, and they were usually reserved for royalty. So I don't know. That'd be something to do on another live stream. We'll talk about Vimanas and see what people know about that. There was supposedly one recovered in an Afghan cave a few years ago. I don't know if that's been actually verified as fact, but according to what I understand, world leaders were flown to that cave site because some of the material brought out of the cave was so advanced that they wanted to make sure that every country on the planet had knowledge of it, so there wasn't that shift in power. Because if one nation finds, say, an advanced rocket engine inside an Afghan cave that's interstellar, and we are able to reverse engineer it, right, then we would be far ahead of other countries. And it could cause a calamity on this planet, major one. You know, we could go into World War III real quick.
Absolutely.
Because they'll want to try. It's like the big kid getting knocked down by the little kid. You want to make a point, you take down the big kid. And that's what they're going to try to do. Anyways, this live stream kind of went in a direction that I didn't anticipate, but it was a really good direction. I do have a video I do want to play because I want people to know something. This is an old one from a friend of mine. It's only 3 minutes long. My friend is Alien Agenda. That's his channel. And he has a video from Jacques Vallée from France. And he's saying that UFOs are teaching us what we don't understand about time and space. Because perhaps maybe they're not aliens from a physical realm. Maybe they're something else.
Time travelers.
Right. Or interdimensional, as we all thought. Or maybe even extra dimensional, something outside of dimensions. So here we go. I'm going to add it and we're going to play it.
You don't seem to be jumping on the extraterrestrial visitors bandwagon.
That's what was the main point of disagreement with Steven Spielberg. When I met Steven Spielberg, he was about halfway through filming Close Encounters, and we had a long discussion about what UFOs could be. And of course, for him, the main point of the movie was entertainment, and it was appropriate for the UFOs to be extraterrestrial visitors. I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think that could be something much more interesting.
Something from another dimension, a space or time.
I think what the UFO phenomenon is teaching us is that we don't understand time and space. Here are objects, I think we have to call them objects, that are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet are capable of, appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
One of the most important findings that has been made about this phenomenon is that it is global in scope. In other words, it doesn't belong to the French or the Americans or the British. There have been waves of sightings, usually lasting about a few weeks or a month and a half, over in very concentrated fashion in certain areas of the world. There have been such waves in Western Europe in 1954, for example. In this country in 1947, we know of waves in the Soviet Union, in China, in Australia, especially in Western Australia. And what is typical about these waves is that the people from all these different cultures around the world are describing the same thing in their own terms. What they are describing is an object that seems to be able to maneuver, seems to be a technology, seems to come to the ground and leave traces. And there have been rings, especially, that have been found, burned circles that have been found very commonly in Australia that are absolutely identical to things that have been catalogued in this country, in France. There is now a catalogue of such traces that encompasses more than 1,000 sightings. The UFO phenomenon didn't really start in 1947. We have many sightings from during the war, before the war, in the 19th century, and going back as far as we have records. And in that regard, I've been especially fascinated by the possible parallel between UFO sightings and folklore. If you think of the Wingina drawings, for example, in Australia, if you think of similar cave drawings from China to the Sahara, if you think of the Celtic traditions in Brittany, in the Celtic countries, if you think of the American Indian folklore, all of those have certain common preoccupations with beings coming from the sky, beings wearing some sort of suit, beings, the whole mythology of contact between men and another culture, possibly coming from space.
You don't seem to be jumping on the extraterrestrial.
Yeah, so what he's saying is that perhaps there are other sources for these ships rather than space, rather than dimensional travel. Maybe they're coming from someplace altogether different. Mm-hmm. I see in the chat they're talking about Laura Eisenhower. Occams has something to say about her grandfather. Does not get specific. Yes, she is a wealth of information, Occam. You should really look into that. In fact, I think I have a video of hers that I may bring up on another live stream next time. But she is really in touch with Mother Earth and the Wiccan belief system. Now, a lot of what I saw recently is that the Celtic cultures and Scottish cultures, there was a UFO star. Well, actually, it was not a UFO. It was a star map that was found in a courtyard in Scotland a few years ago. That's a legitimate star map. And they wondered why. They wondered why this star map was so accurate. It was in Scotland. It wasn't like it was in where the Aztecs were, where the Mayans were. It wasn't like the Mayan calendar. But this star map was extremely accurate, and it actually had galaxies on the star map that we didn't even know of. So that means that either somebody visited Scotland and taught these people how to make this star map, or maybe the Scottish were that incredibly intelligent to where they were able to figure it out. I don't know. It seems kind of difficult to think that human beings could decipher where certain galaxies are without help. What do you think, Tommy?
Well, you know, again, we're talking about such a complex issue here. There's so many different facets to the UFO phenomenon as a whole. To me, it goes right back to the fact that I'm absolutely certain the government knows that we are not alone. They're well aware of this. There's no question. Again, it's just getting that information out of them. And, you know, we've discussed several reasons why that they're probably withholding it this evening. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to come down to any government actually disclosing this. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think it's each one of us out there that has our own little tiny piece of the puzzle. And when we get together in a venue like this and we share information and we share our little pieces of the puzzle, then we begin to build a bigger picture. And hopefully one of these days we'll be able to disclose it ourselves and not have to worry about the government. Right,
exactly. Hey, Scratch, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. And Urban Sight, and Anna, good to see you too. What I was going to say, when you said like the Doga culture in Africa that knew about Sirius, B, how did they know that? How did Betty and Barney Hill, how did they know about that one galaxy? How'd they know about it? Mm-hmm. They were shown it. They were shown it by beings that came here. Obviously, that's got to be the answer. I mean, I think that's how the Doga were shown. I think that's how the Hopi talk about star people. They were visited, and it was a common thing. I heard that the Hopi would sit around their fires and talk to these beings. So, you know, whether this is the case or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. But you have to go on a little bit of faith. I mean, our field is a leap of faith.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Occam says, I have a link of the Mona Lisa's artist. The moon photo ship is real and she was created. Yeah, I've got a picture of that as well, and that's a famous picture of the man with his dog looking up at a UFO behind the Mona Lisa.
Right. Yeah. What's he looking at? Come on. Was he looking at an airplane? I don't think so.
And even if he was looking at an airplane in that century, that'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it?
Think so. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen.
Haven't quite mastered flight yet.
Yeah, star map round disc. Yes, Rene, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, round discs and spirals that they had in that star map in Scotland. And if you want to check that out, all you have to do is Google that. Just Google Scottish star map, and the information will come up. Yeah, Scratch, I haven't seen you for a long time. It's just good to see you here. Anyways, what I want to do is get Tommy's last thoughts. Tommy, got any last thoughts for this evening?
Well, as usual, I want to thank you for having me, Tim, and everybody. Thanks for coming out. We really appreciate that. I think we had a pretty good show tonight. Hopefully we've answered some questions, and hopefully we've come up with a few more questions, and that's what we're here to do. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Oh, yeah. And one other thing, I'm 2 subs away on my channel from 150 subs. So if anybody would be so kind, I would really appreciate it. I'll post the link, and I thank you for that, guys.
Yeah. If you can help them out, please do so. In regards to this evening, I want to say that we kind of went in a direction where we raised more questions than we actually answered. But, you know, that's part of the field. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've been researching this for, better of maybe 2/3 of my life. And I can honestly tell you, I still have not come to the conclusion of where these things are from or why they're here. And I'm hoping that this UAPTF organization will actually honor their 8 objectives and provide accountability for the process and show us what is actually out there and what we're not seeing. We need to see what the FBI has. We need to see what the DOD is holding back. We need to see what the Office of Naval Intelligence has been holding back for years. But according to what I understand, because of the ramifications of them hiding this for so long, they have dug themselves such a deep hole that they can't come out of it.
Right.
And that's the issue.
And then once you disclose, then they're going to have to explain things like alien abduction and all of that. It opens up an entire can of worms that the government is just simply not prepared to deal with, in my opinion.
Right. Hi, Death NWO. Good to see you. Anyways, I want to thank everybody in the chat. I want to thank Tommy Highway for being here this evening. He pushed me. I wasn't feeling well earlier, and he said, no, we got to be on because our fans are looking for us. And he was correct. And I feel so much better for doing this. So thank you, everyone, for coming out. And we are going to be up and running again on Saturday next week at 8:00 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So if you would like to be there, we hope to see you. And I want to thank you for being here. See you next time, and good evening.